Hello and welcome to the Snowflake session. In today's session, we are going to learn the five different ways or types of update statements. So, these update statements will be used to modify the data in the Snowflake tables. So, let's get started. So, before we jump into the demo, let's create two tables and insert some data in these tables. So, we'll be creating a employee and department table. The employee table will hold data like employee ID, then salary, the department ID, the city, and the designation. And the department table will hold department ID, department name, and the head office of these departments. So let's run these statements and get these tables created. Okay, our tables are now ready. Now, the first statement is a very simple statement. In this statement, we are updating the employee table and we are going to set the salary as salary plus 0.1% of salary. That means we are going to give a 10% raise to these employees. And this update statement will only update the salary for those employees for which department ID is 1. So this is indicated by this where clause. And now let's see which employees have got the department ID as 1. So here you can see that only two employees, the employee number one and employee number two, they belong to department ID one, and the salary for these employees is 32,000 and 78,000. Now only these salaries will be updated by 10%. Now let's run this update statement. You can see that the two records have been updated. Now let's go and check in the table whether the records have really been updated or not. Here you can see that the salary has now been updated by 10% for employee ID 1 and 2 who belong to department ID 1. So this is about our first very simple update statement. Now let's take a look at the second update statement. It's somewhat similar to the first statement. In this statement as well, we are going to update the salary, but we are conditionally going to update the salary in this case. Here you can see that we have applied a case statement and the condition is based on the department ID, we will apply the salary raise. So as per this condition, when the department ID of a employee is 2, then we are going to give a 10% salary raise. And the employees for which department ID is 3, for those employees, the salary raise will be given as 20%. And finally, we'll see there is a where clause which says department ID not equal to 1. This means that we are going to apply this salary raise for all the employees which are not part of department 1. So let's run this statement now. Now you can see that only 5 records have been updated by this update statement out of total 7 records. This means that the update statement has skipped these first 2 records because for them the department ID is 1. Now let's run a select statement on this table and see whether the salary has really been updated or not for these last 5 records. Yes, the salary has been updated now for these remaining 5 records. So that's about this second update statement. Moving on to the third update statement. In this example, we are going to make use of another table uh, to perform an update statement. So based on the join condition between two tables, we will decide whether to update a particular record or not. So in this update statement, we are going to set the city of the employees as head office. So we can see here that the update statement starts with the update and then the table in which we are going to update the data. Then we are going to set the city of employees, and we are going to update the city by the head office from the department table. Next comes the from clause. So in the from clause, we'll mention the source table name or the joining table name, which is department. And in the where clause, we are going to join these two tables, the employee and department tables, based on the department ID field. So this means that only those employees uh, city will be updated where the department ID matches between the employee and department. And suppose one of the employee records has got a empty department, for example, uh, and in that case, the record or the city for that employee won't be updated because there is no matching data between the employee and department. Now let's run this statement and check the data. So here you can see that all 7 records have been updated. Now if you go back to the data, you can see that all of these employees, they either belong to department 1, 2, or 3. And you can see that in the department table, all these 3 departments are available in this table. And this means that the join between these two tables is successfully occurred. And now let's go and check the data. So you can see here that the head office for department ID 1 is Pune, for 2 it's Mumbai, and for 3 it's Chennai. Now let's go and check the employee data and see whether the city for these employees have been updated or not. Yes, you can see here that the employee with department ID 1 has been updated with Pune city, 2 has been updated with Mumbai, and 3 has been updated with Chennai. Now let's move on to our fourth statement. So the fourth update statement is actually a merge statement. So this merge statement is it will act as both update as well as insert. So you can also insert data into table using the merge into statement, and that's the beauty of this statement. So before we move into the demo for this merge statement, let's create one more table. Let's call this table as source underscore employee. So this table will hold the similar structure as the employee table. Uh, and this table we are going to use as a source for our main employee table. And let's run these statements and create this table. So before we move into the demo of merge statement, we are actually going to merge the data between this source employee table and the employee table. So this means that the we are actually going to join these two tables, and for whichever tables, whichever employees the data matches between the source employee and the employee table, we will be updating the data based on certain condition. And whichever employees join doesn't work between the source employee and employee table, we are going to insert that record as a new record. Now if we take a look at the data in these two tables, you can see here that the employee number 1 already exists in the employee table, as well as employee number 2 and 3, they do exist in the main employee table, whereas employee number 8 is completely a new employee, and which the record for this employee doesn't exist at the moment in the main employee table. uh, Now this means that the employee 8 is a completely new record, and this record will get inserted into the employee table via this merge statement. And for the remaining 3 employees, I have slightly changed the city, I think, for these 3 employees. So let's go and take a look. So the employee number 1, 2, and 3 has got Pune, Mumbai, and Delhi as their city, and for for the employee for the employee number 1, 2, and 3 in the source table, I have changed the city for this employee number 1, and for employee number 2, I think I have changed the designation. Yes, for employee number 2, the senior recruiter is the designation in the main employee table, and in the source employee table I have changed it to HR partner. And for employee number 3, I changed the what have I changed? Yeah, it looks like I have not changed anything for employee number 3, and this means that we are actually not going to modify this record in the main employee table. And that's it, I think. So before we run this merge statement, let's recreate this employee table, because in the previous statement I had updated the city for all of these employees. So let's recreate the table. Okay, now let's go to this merge statement, and let's understand how it works. So the syntax of the merge statement starts with merge into, and then the table, the target table in which we are going to update the data. And then comes the using clause, and within the using clause, we'll mention the source table, which we are going to use as a source to merge into the target table. Then we'll provide the join condition between these two tables. So the employee ID is the common key field which we will be using to join the source employee and the employee table. Now, next clause is when clause. So when matched, what this means is uh, when the employee ID mm, uh, values match between the source employee and employee, then this clause will be evaluated. And optionally, we can provide a and clause as well here. So here I'm comparing the salary between the source employee table and the main employee table for each of these employees. And if it is different, then I'm going to update the employee table, and I'm going to set the salary of employee table as salary from the new source table, which is this table. So this means that only if the salary changed for that employee, then only it will get updated. Otherwise, it won't be updated. And similarly, then for each of these other fields, the department ID or city or designation, I'm going to compare these values between the main and source employee table, and only if they are changed, then only I'm going to update them in the target table. The next clause is when not matched. This means that when the employee ID join doesn't work between these two tables, and the candidate for that is employee number 8, because this employee number doesn't exist currently in the employee table. And for this particular employee, we are going to then insert the data. So you can see here the insert clause, and within brackets we provide all those fields which we are going to insert into the target, and values are coming from the source table, which is src dot. The src alias we have created for the src employee table, and it will insert all these values into the final employee table. So this is how the merge statement works. So you get both the update and insert capabilities using the merge statement. Now let's run this statement. So here you can see that one record has been inserted, which should be the employee number 8, because it's completely a new record. And the number of rows updated are 2, which is employee number 1 and 2. The employee number 3, like I mentioned before, has not been updated. although the join works here perfectly, but the condition, the additional condition that we have provided here, none of them is satisfied. And that's the reason the employee number 3 data has not been updated into the final target table. Now let's run a query on employee table and see how the data looks like. So here you can see that the employee number 8 has been inserted, and you can verify the data that's coming from the source employee table. And employee number 1 and 2 as well are updated. For employee number 1, we have updated the city, which is Hyderabad now. And for employee number 2, we have updated the designation, which is HR partner. So this is how the merge statement works. Now let's move on to the final update statement that we have. In this final update statement, we are actually going to use the exists clause. So this exists clause we can use while updating a table. Um, so the way it works is we are going to check the existence of uh, of this particular record from each from the employee table. We are going to compare it with the relative record or related record from some other table, and if the record exists in the other table, only then we are going to update the data in the employee table. So before we move to the demo, let's recreate this table because we have now updated the data in the employee table. I'm just going to recreate it. Now I'm going to create a new table here, which is called as employee onboarding status. So let's assume that this particular organization has got a process wherein when a new employee joins the company, the department ID of this company of this employee is set as empty or null. And once the employee joins the company, the onboarding process starts. And only after the onboarding state is completed, then a default mm, department is assigned to an employee, and then the actual department will be assigned to this employee once the company finalizes in which department the employee is going to work. So here you can see that when I recreated this employee table, I have kept the uh, department ID as null for all these employees because they have recently joined the company and they have not yet completed the onboarding status. Uh, so the next table that I'm going to create is called as employee onboarding status. And in this table, I'm holding all the employee numbers along with their onboarding status. So you can see here that for some of the employees, the onboarding is completed. For some of them, the onboarding is still in progress. Now, when we run this update statement, we will update the department ID for all those employees for which onboarding status is completed. And for the employees for which onboarding status is still in progress, we are going to leave the department ID as null. Now here you can see that the if you take a look at the department table, I have created a fourth department as default. So we are going to assign this default department to those employees for which the onboarding status is complete. So now let's go ahead and create this table. Okay, the table has now been created. Now, if we take a look at the update statement here, the syntax is update and then the final table name in which we are going to update the data. And then we are going to set the department ID as 4, which belongs to the default department. And then in the where clause, we are saying where exists. So this exists clause will check whether the subquery that is mentioned over here within these brackets, it evaluates to true or not. So for only those employees for which the subquery evaluates to true, the department ID will be set to 4. So let's take a look at this subquery. So we are selecting one, so you can select anything like select star or select any particular field from the employee onboarding status. So this is the related table for this employee table, and we are joining these two tables based on the employee ID field, which is common key field, and we are checking whether the onboarding status is completed. So only for those employees for which the onboarding status is completed and where the this join evaluates to true, uh, in that case this exists clause will be evaluated as successful, and for those employees the employee ID will be set to 4. And here you can see that we have another and clause here where which says department ID is null. This means that we are only going to update the default department ID for those employees for which we have not already updated the department ID as default. So now let's run this statement. So here you can see that the three number of records have been updated in employee table, and that's because only for three employees the onboarding status is completed, which are employee number 1, 3, and 5. Now let's run the select statement on the employee table. So here you can see that for the employee numbers 1, 3, and 5, the department ID has been set as 4. So now let's go and now update the status of one of these employees as completed and see whether the department ID gets updated to default or not. So let me pick up the employee number 4. So let's these update the status as completed for this employee, and let me just recreate this table. So as per this table, now four of these employees are now the onboarding is completed, and all these four employees should now be updated with default department. So let's run this update statement now. Now you can see here that only one record has been updated, which should be the employee number 4, and you have noticed that since the employee numbers 1, 3, and 5 they have already been updated with default value of 4. We are not going to re-update those values via this update statements. So let's run the select query now uh, on the employee table. So you can see that the employee number 4 has been updated with the department ID of 4. So this is how the exist clause works. You can also use a where not exist clause as well, and accordingly negate the conditions in this select clause. But remember that the not exist clause is a bit slower, and it can take up more time as compared to the exist clause. So this is all about these different ways of updating the tables in Snowflake. Thanks for watching.